Premed office hours. My name is Dr. Ryan Gray. Oh man, if you guys, I think we should charge for like pre-show access to see just how crazy things get here at Medical School HQ. We would have to sign have students sign some NDAs, make sure nobody's recording anything because we might get canceled. I'm the founder of Medical School Headquarters and Mappd, author of the Premed Playbook series. I got one of those books over here, my personal statement book. But best job of all, I get to hang out with these amazing dudes. It's Dudes Day. Dudes Day.
Woohoo!
You really do need a sound to play.
Reverend Dr. James Scott Wright, former director of admissions at UT Southwestern, retired executive director at TMDSAS. We're bringing all the TMDSA folks over to medical school.
Yeah, exactly. We got all of them coming. Enrique now, and
yeah, potentially some more. Well, we're working on it. How you doing, Reverend Doctor?
I'm doing well. It's raining here in North Texas or East Texas this morning, or today. So it's nice because we needed the rain. So yay for rain.
Here comes the rain, as they say. Carlos Tapia, former director of student affairs at Icahn School of Medicine and former director of admissions at TCU, host of the Med School Years podcast, which just hit 13 episodes, I believe, last week. How are you doing, Carlos?
I'm good. It's cloudy. It's not raining as much here, but it's sort of a dreary fall day. So
yeah,
fun stuff.
Scott, what are you an hour, 2 hours east of Dallas?
I'm about 2 hours east of Carlos. Yeah.
Very cool. All right, friends. For those who don't know, we are here to answer your questions to the best of our ability. Think of us as free pre-med advisors for the next 50 minutes. Sorry for the delay. We were just having too much fun before we record. But ask your questions, as always. If you have other questions or personal questions you want to ask of Dr. Wright or Carlos or any of the other amazing experts that we have at Medical School Headquarters, you can go schedule a consult at medicalschoolhq.net. We do 30-minute advising calls, 50-minute advising calls, mock interviews, essay editing, all kinds of good stuff. So check it out. Maya says, hi, everyone. Hello. Welcome. Ben, could helping out my old basketball program during winter break as sort of a part-time coach be volunteer experience? Scott, I tell this story often with a student. I was giving a talk at a small, it was a wilderness medicine course at CU. And so I gave a talk there, and one of the students, it was all pre-meds, pre-PA students. One of the students said, I coach soccer. I volunteer and coach soccer for young girls. And my pre-med advisor said, stop doing that. It's useless for your medical school application. And my initial response was like, no, that is like, you're allowed to go do things that you want to do as a human being with interests and passions outside of medicine.
Yes.
And oh, by the way, I potentially could read into that going, oh, you have some good communication skills, some organization skills, some leadership skills, all these things that you don't necessarily have to tell me in your description. But I think at the end of the day, for Ben here, if it lights his fire, if it fuels him, do it.
Go for it.
Even if it has no bearing on the medical school application.
Right. Exactly.
What do you think of that?
I completely agree with that. I think, Ben, I think go for it. Do what you want to do. Do what it sounds good to you with compassion and that you're passionate about. I mean, and now that doesn't take away from all the other stuff that you need to be doing. And as long as you're doing all that, then, whatever, do other things that you enjoy doing. Absolutely.
Yeah, I always remember a student, super non-traditional student who didn't get into medical school first time applying. And I took a look at his application. He had 3 activities on his application. And I'm like, you've been out of school for 9 years. What have you been doing? He goes, I'm a manager at Walmart. I do this, I do that. I'm like, that's not on your application. He goes, I thought the application was for like medical school stuff. I'm like, yeah. So.
Yeah.
Stop the insanity, as our good friend, what's her name? Susan. Who says that? Stop the insanity. Anyway, hello, Mashi. Glad I could catch this. Glad you could catch it too. Maya asks a question that I hope nobody really has to face, but it happens. It's only recently, Carlos, that the AAMC put a cap on MCAT attempts, 7 lifetime attempts. If a student, let's do, Carlos, 2 scenarios here. A student's like 485, 490, 492, 491, 480, right? They're just up, down. But that's 7th attempt, 515. They crush it. They've something figured out. How does a school potentially look at that?
I think congratulations for making it that high right at that very last attempt. But I think it does.
And Carlos, that's based on a true story.
Okay. I think it does bring some cause for concern, right? 7 times. What is it that you were doing? Did it take you the 6th time and into that 7th time to really say, okay, fine, I'm going to take a step back, reassess, figure out what's going to happen for me next, and then attempt it? It almost, I would say it does bring up that question of like, what were you doing? Who were you working with? Who did you talk to? Like, were you just doing this on your own and saying, I'm just going to keep going in the hopes that it improves? So it does, although you hit that, I would say high score, it still brings this cause of concern of like, what were you doing? And you really didn't have time to reassess and reflect. And med school, unfortunately, is based on all of these standardized tests to progress from one step to the next. And it does bring that awareness of like, what does this mean for you as you take exams in the future in med school? Are you going to be able to pass, or is it going to take you 5 times, 4 times to get to that passing level? And so it does raise awareness, concern.
Yeah. I mean, that's the big thing, right? Is if we're going to equate the MCAT and how well someone does on the MCAT, and if they can pass it first time or get a good score first time, how does that look for USMLE Step 1 or Step 2? These tests that students have to take. And is a school going to assume, like, it took you 7 times to get the score you needed, quote unquote needed, on the MCAT? You don't get 7 tries. I mean, maybe you do. 7 tries for USMLE Step 1. And so schools are going to get scared. I know Emory, I talk about Emory all the time. They have their language that anything more than 3 times is considered non-competitive. But again, that the data that I gave you, I don't remember the numbers specifically, but there was a student several years ago that I chatted with, took the MCAT 7 times. His 5th time, he finally crushed it and got, I think it was a 515 or 517, was right around there, and was accepted, I believe, to one of the Texas schools. And so, never say never, but I think it brings up some concerns.
I think it also brings, Go
ahead.
I just say it also brings up, like, was this the fluke and were the 6 attempts before the real performance, right? Like,
or who did you hire?
Right, because everything that's been here, nothing, the only one that's here, I think if it was like a more spread out, I would be like, okay, it's possible. But when you're like 4 in the 400s and then all of a sudden it's a 515, like, that's the fluke, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So
yeah, 100%. For me, it's I come at it from a little bit of a different view. I hated the MCAT. Step 1 is nothing like the MCAT, and so I have a much harder time justifying MCAT performance to USMLE performance, as much as the AAMC wants to try to equate them and show that there's correlation in how well a student does. As we saw at a press conference the other day, that a lot of people don't understand correlation and causation, so it's hard to justify that. But yeah, if you have to take it 7 times, I think that ultimately is the answer, right? If you don't have the score you need, number 1, go to the Caribbean, or number 2, like, go crush it your 7th time. And if you crush it, go apply to medical schools and cross your fingers. Oh, silly MCAT. I like Blue's question, Scott, here. If your state school in the city you're from is really good, will other schools assume you will just want to go to your state school and not interview you? I like this question because this, I think, happens a lot with Texas residents who might be applying to AMCAS out of their states, or maybe to some of the AMCAS schools in the state of Texas. Number one, Texas is cheaper, right? The Texas tuition and cost of attendance is much cheaper. And we call this yield protection, right? A medical school may look at an application and go, hey, you're a really good applicant. I just don't think you're going to come here because I think you're going to get into a school through TMDSAS and you're going to want to stay in Texas because you're a Texan and that's what Texans do. What do you think of this?
I don't know. Number one, the schools don't know where you're applying. If in AMCAS, they don't know if you're applying TMDSAS or not. You may or may not be. Now, I think it's a good assumption if you're a Texas resident that you are.
Yep.
However, I just don't think medical schools make those. They're looking at the person, and yes, there's some of this yield protection going on at a small level, I think. But I think generally speaking, they give the advantage to the applicant as much as possible. If we like your application, we'll interview you, and then we'll see after the interview kind of what we think. But I don't think that, especially on an interview, I don't think that they really go into a lot of detail on, well, now I will say that when you're making offers from the alternate list on the other end of the process, absolutely things like that go on because they're looking to fill places. But on the front end, I don't think that's so much of a concern, frankly.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think ultimately, right, the answer is apply where you want to go to school and let the schools do what they're going to do.
That's right. That's not your call.
Yeah, because what's the alternative? Just to apply to that one school because you're afraid the other schools are not going to interview you? I don't think that's good either. Brian. Hello, non-trad here, taking my prereqs at my local community college, considering a post-bac afterward to calm any concerns about academic readiness as a non-trad. Would love to hear your thoughts on how admissions committees view post-bac that focus on undergrad upper division courses versus SMPs. I think this is a pretty easy answer. We talk about this all the time. And Scott, I think you are one of the more outspoken ones on this, that I think medical schools generally, right, we can't be specific about every single one, but generally it seems like they prefer undergraduate level courses over master's courses.
Yeah, I think it's easier for them to interpret what that means. Yeah. They deal with undergraduate classes all the time, over and over and over again. And so they know what those are, what they mean. They know what the content is. When you get into graduate work, now SMP is a little bit different, but SMPs, they're sometimes difficult to interpret what quality they are. Some of the well-known ones obviously are well regarded, but there's a lot of SMPs around. There's also a lot of undergrad post-bac classes, programs around. But to answer your question, yes, I think that medical schools generally know how to interpret undergraduate classes better than the graduate ones.
Yeah, Carlos, I want to follow up with really the crux of this question is basically the student saying, hey, I'm taking my prereqs at community college, but I'm also just going to do a post-bac anyway, just in case someone doesn't like my community college courses. It seems like a lot of extra work that might not be needed.
Yeah, it seems like you're doubling the effort, doubling the double stacking pretty much, right? Yeah. Like to prove that you're academic ready to get into med school. I come from the belief that community college courses can be as equally as hard as regular 4-year institution. And so this idea of taking a post-bac, like, why didn't just not do the post-bac, right? Like skip the community college courses. That would be the thing. But I'm approaching it also from I don't want to do all these community college and then, I'm going to take the post-bac to show them that I can do more than community college. I would have just gone to the post-bac and that would have been sufficient. But also financially, like this is a lot of money. So
yeah, so it's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
And it's already feeding into this community college is lesser than. And unfortunately, there potentially are some admissions committee members who have that feeling. I think it's ignorant. It's like oftentimes it's the same professor that teaches the same class at the 4-year university that goes across the street to the community college and teaches it there. So it's crazy. I wouldn't do if you're crushing your prereqs at the community college. I wouldn't go and do a post-bac then as well. Oh, Carlos, let's talk about this question here. A disadvantage if experiences were done abroad, volunteering in another country. This comes up a lot. A lot of people have better connections to potentially opportunities in other countries, and or rules are a little bit more lax in other countries to allow students to come in and volunteer and do things. What are some potential concerns here?
I think for me, the concern that would come up with this is that you didn't experience, I would say from the clinical standpoint, right? The healthcare in the US is that you went to a different country and you're trying to go to medical school here. And I think that's what may be a concern. But the other thing too is like, what did you do to get, why was it easier for you to get that clinical experience there versus doing the legwork to get clinical experience here? And so I think it's a mix of things. It's not just like, oh, well, you went and did it there just because you did it there. It's, again, I think like the MCAT conversation, right? The perception that it gives to committees of, oh, but you're not really experienced in this, what medicine is like in the US. And what else have you done in addition to what you've done in a different country to sort of supplement this experience? Remember, it's not about just the one single isolated clinical experience. It's about all of the other things that encompass your application, including additional shadowing and clinical experiences. But those are the things that come to mind is what have you experienced here if you're trying to come to medical school in the US? All of the healthcare systems are very different. I would say similar but different.
Yep.
Chloe asks, when is it okay to ask schools for an update on your applications? It's about a month for some schools since I submitted the secondaries and primary, mainly for one out-of-state school. I talk about this all the time, Scott. Just my frustration with the lack of communication.
Yeah.
To me, it's some level of disrespect of like, thanks for your money. Thanks for taking your time to apply. We're just not going to tell you anything, potentially not even until like the very end of the application cycle, aka our class starts.
Right. Right.
So there's that on one end of just like, yes, it sucks, but for a student to reach out and go, hey, like I haven't heard anything, like I don't think students should do that either.
No, I mean, number one, you can do it, but I don't, you may not get any response. So, they're inundated with a lot of stuff, especially this time of year. I don't think, I understand your desire to know information and the lack of comfort there is in waiting and not knowing. Get used to it. Life is like that.
Yep.
So, sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but so I would not reach out to the school and I would just deal with it. Yeah. That's my comment.
Yeah. Good luck, Chloe. It's just lots of ghosting, unfortunately. Ali asks, can schools see what other schools you apply to? No. Does TMDSAS still ask, like, if you're applying out of state? Like, I tell students just to ignore that question.
And the TMDSAS schools know where you're applying in TMDSAS.
Okay, so that's good to know.
Yeah.
All right. So many good questions today. Carlos, here's a good one for you from a residency standpoint. Blue asks a question: are there any advantages to schools that use letter grades? I think if you were to peruse social media, medical students almost across the board will say pick a school that is pass fail, just because of the lack of theoretical stress that it brings, right? It lowers the stress level of trying to get good grades. Number one, even pass fail schools might not be truly pass fail. They may still be grading and ranking behind the scenes. And so it's kind of a pseudo pass fail for that future dean's letter. What's that called?
Medical Student Performance Evaluation.
MSPE?
Yes.
Yeah. I just called it the dean's letter.
I think it was called that at some point,
Yeah.
and then they gave it an official name.
Yeah, someone was like, we need another abbreviation to use here, an initialism, not an acronym. And so, like, is it truly pass fail? Is it not? Do you see, like, for a student, how do you rank this in terms of how they pick their schools? Graded school, pass fail school, etc., and then bearing on the residency applications as well?
I've never really placed emphasis on grading from that standpoint. I think it's because, one, I'm not interested in medicine, right? But I think if this is something that is important to you, I would also sort of correlate what does the clinical years look like, the grading, because although most schools go pass fail for their didactics, right? Straightforward. When you get to the clinical years, the scale changes regardless of whether the school is pass fail.
Yep. And
even now, some schools have gone to different grading scales within the clinical year. And I will say that most programs look at the performance in the clinical years, because if you're at the point of residency, although they could see, I would say, the history, your academic history, you've pretty much made it through, right? There shouldn't be, I would say, doubts that you can't understand the content that you are being taught. It's now, how do you perform in the clinical environment? There could be potential questions. I'm not going to lie. Have you failed the course and then remediated it? Or if there's a pattern of multiple fails sort of in those first 2 years, or whatever the didactic pieces, or the preclinical years. But I would say the focus then shifts to the clinical years, and that's where the emphasis is placed. And whether it's A through F or pass fail, I mean, at the end of the day, whatever school you go to, you're making the decision based on you wanting to attend that school, and you're going to do everything to perform well in that process, knowing that in 3.5 years, you're not going to have to apply for residency. But I don't think there's an advantage or a disadvantage. It's just still have to perform. I think it's just maybe for my own personal sake, right? Like, those people got A's, I got a B. What is that? What does that say, right? That you were a student that performed at a B level. But yeah, there's a lot more that goes into play for residency than just grades, I will say.
Yep. Definitely. It's another interesting question. If you get in, is there a professional or any advantage to graduating from an Ivy med school? It does seem much more expensive than a state med school. Oh, I love this, Scott. I think one of I'm super glad in this country, for whatever reason, we have kept away the prejudice, I guess. I'm trying to think of the right words here, right? We don't, in terms of we as in the hiring people that are hiring physicians, that are the residency program directors generally, that are hiring physicians to come work after residency. We don't have what happens a lot in the law world, where if you want to go work at the best firm in New York City, you go look at their lawyers. They're from Columbia and Yale and Harvard, right, or wherever. It's like the top, however many med school or law schools in the country. We've avoided that for med school. If you've gone to med school, you've passed medical school, you did your residency, you're board certified, whatever. Like, sky's the limit in terms of your career, right?
I think so. I agree with that. Now there may be some small percentage of something out there that they only want doctors from hoity-toity schools or something. But
Some level of pretentiousness.
yeah, but I think generally speaking, you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yep. Yeah, and I always challenge students I like doing this exercise in Application Academy because we'll get this question often. Go to what you consider to be a top institution in your state or your area, wherever. Go to a specialty that you're potentially interested in and look at all of the physicians and look at where they're from.
Yep.
And almost always, because never say always, never say never, but almost always, the physicians are from a broad spectrum of schools and backgrounds and experiences. So
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I had a faculty member that was one of our interviewers at Southwestern when I was there. He was a graduate of a Caribbean medical school.
yeah.
Which now I think that's maybe a little bit unusual, perhaps, but I don't know. But anyway.
Yeah. I don't think so. Caribbean school, DO school, lots of international grads outside of the Caribbean, from India or England or wherever.
Yep.
So, yeah. Let's see. So far, only one interview at a school with a letter grades, and I'm scared of everyone saying pass fail is the way to go. Oh yeah, sorry, that's just a follow up from the other one. All right. Go where you go. I mean, if that's the only school you get accepted to, like,
Right.
you're not pass fail, so I'm gonna go. Eat ham. Eat ham. Why is it duplicated? Eat ham. Eat ham. Any tips for MMI prep? I have 7 days. I dug up an episode of the Premed years from 10 years ago with Dean Rivera. Love Raphael. From the school, but I'm not sure what has changed since then. Yeah, not a lot. I remember that episode clearly. I was just talking to Dean Rivera, Dr. Rivera, 2 weeks ago for MappdCon. Carlos, what's your favorite MMI prep advice?
Be you. Use all of your experiences and all of the knowledge you have gained to date to be able to provide a response. MMIs are not necessarily based on your expertise in the clinical realm or your expertise in any given field. It really is using everything in your journey to be able to provide a response to the prompt, to the question. Just go in there and have a conversation. I think that's the easiest way. I was actually doing a mock with somebody today. I said, like, I like MMIs. These are fun. More than the traditional
they
one.
be, yeah.
More than the traditional questions. But that's the knowledge. That's the tip that I have, because I think sometimes people go in assuming that MMIs are this, you need to know all this clinical stuff. But you don't. So, yeah. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Eat them.
All right, let's see. Here's another MMI question. We'll continue the MMI trend. Scott, this is a very common question. With the MMI, you're typically given 5-6 or so minutes in the station itself after reading the prompt and a couple of minutes to think about it. Oftentimes, students feel like they have to spend that whole time talking, right? That time is to fill the time with all of your answers, and if you stop before, you have failed.
No, that's actually bad. I think I think you want to fill up about 50 to 60% of the time with your initial response, and then that gives time for the interviewer to ask follow-up questions or change the scenario somehow or whatever. But you don't want to. This is not a monologue for you for 6 minutes. That's not what an MMI is. There's going to be some back and forth, and you got to give room for that.
Yeah, generally, I heard from one student, and I don't think they ever told me the school, just from the NDA perspective, that the interviewers did not ask follow-up questions.
Really?
Like, as soon as the student was done talking, it was just silence. And I'm like, that's
That-
terrible.
That's
I
awful.
think.
That's
Right.
really awful.
Carlos, you're an MMI purist. What do you think about that?
Bad school, bad program. No, MMI,
Name and shame.
MMI should have follow-up question for that purpose. Like, I don't think there should be an expectation that in the time that you're in the interview room, you should talk for all 6 minutes, right? I think there should be a conversation and follow-up questions. And the part of the MMI process is standardizing the training for all of the MMI interviewers to say, this is what you do. This is how you address a person. Here are the follow-up questions. There is no these one-off questions. Tell me more about you. Tell me about your application. Like, none of that. And we did spend a lot of time before the MMI began, when we used to do them, to create that standardizations and say, here's the prompt. You have the resources. Here are your follow-up questions. Nothing else. We even went as far to say, don't say words that could potentially lead the applicant to think that they're going to get an offer of admission of, like, you did such a great job, right? Like, you would say, thank you, have a good day. Because again, you create, in a high stakes environment, you create this perception that somebody's like doing amazing. Yep. And then you go and do this, and then the applicant gets a decision that's not what they thought, and it creates chaos. So again, schools should be standardizing. The MMI process was created with time and standardization in mind, and it shouldn't be this free will thing. And also, don't make somebody sit awkwardly stare at you for an additional 3 minutes with nothing to say. So.
All right. There was a question here that came in from Instagram. How do I start creating a med school list? Dun, dun, dun. Scott, the easiest thing is you just go to the MSAR. You put in your grades, your MCAT score, and you find out the list of schools that match your stats, right? That's all students should do.
Yeah, that's it. That's the ticket. Yeah, that's the ticket. No, don't do that. Don't do that. You do go to the MSAR first, I think. I think that's where the greatest amount of information is for the MD schools. And you really dive into that. and I think it's best if you start that process way in advance, so you have plenty of time to look at schools. And I mean, even if you don't know your MCAT score yet, for example, or whatever, start looking at schools as early as possible, so you get some ideas of what you like, what you don't like, what resonates with you, what doesn't, that kind of stuff. So, and you want to really, I would start with a list of what are schools that you just think would be cool. I mean, everybody has schools in their mind that, oh, wouldn't it be great to go here or there or whatever. You may end up even pulling that school off the list at some point, but at least it gets you started in the process.
Yep. Yeah, I have a podcast episode. It is premedyears.com/437. I need to re-record it just to get it fresh and updated, but go check that out for how to build a school list. Chloe said, I don't know what that's in response to. Francis, one interview at a top 20. I don't know what top 20 means, Francis. Only applied to 7 schools. Ouch. Mix of out-of-state schools, private and out-of-state friendly. Should I hope for more interviews in the coming months? Carlos, 7 schools. Not a lot. But that's okay. 1 interview. Why are we complaining? We got an interview. That's awesome.
I'm just irked by the comment of the top 20. Like,
that was my sarcastic response. I don't know what that means. Top 20 based on obviously U.S. News and World Reports, which we talk about almost every single week here. It's a BS list created to sell magazines and website clicks. It has no bearing on your education. It only feeds ego. If that's what you wanted to do, awesome, congratulations. But again, no bearing on your education. So be happy you got an interview. And if you want more interviews, apply to more schools, potentially.
Very little schools. It's just very little, right? Average is what, 19, 20?
It's 19
on the low
now for
end.
MD, yeah.
And you're applying to 7 schools, and I am sure that those mixed state out of schools are probably within that your frame of reference that they have to be top 20, 10. So
State. Yeah.
yeah, it's probably, you probably need to go in and add more. And I think get out of that mindset that I have to go to Harvard and I have to go to Yale to become the best physician I could possibly become.
Yep. Yeah, the newest data is 18.6 applications per applicant. So 19. Again, that doesn't mean you have to apply. I've asked if any statisticians are watching. I would love to know from a statistical standpoint, is adding schools to your list, does that increase your chances of getting in? Or is it like flipping a coin where it's like no matter how many times you flipped it, it's still 50-50? I want to know like the mathematical answer to that question, because I think it would help inform us. I think generically I would go, oh yeah, apply to more schools, it increases your chances. But I want to know like mathematically if that's true or what that actually means.
Yeah.
So if any of you can get me that answer, I would love it. I'm definitely not smart enough to get that answer from a statistics standpoint. Following up, right, how many schools should you apply to? Again, the average is about 19 at this point. The process is very expensive. It's ridiculous. But yeah. I going back to the top 20 comment, I like having conversations in public about things that we do. I haven't brought it up yet in one of our meetings. I would love to have a project between all of us to figure out a school ranking system that actually has
It's
some
meaningful.
on some meaningful thing that isn't there to drive revenue for a magazine. It'll obviously be on the website and it'll drive traffic to the website, but yeah, I would love to figure out some sort of methodology for that.
But how do you, the question I think for me is, isn't it sort of already there? I think, again, like this idea that applying to med school should be this perfect formula of like a 528, right? 4.0 and like 15 experiences that are stellar. You've dedicated so much. I think it's the same with schools, right? It's this idea that I should apply to these top 20s or what is perceived as Ivy Leagues or what's perceived that they do good at this without really looking at the entire picture or the landscape of the program, where the graduates end up, even where they end up in residency, right? To your point, Ryan, earlier of looking where the students come from. They're not all just from Ivy League institutions. And I think it's that, breaking that perception of like, just because you go to an Ivy League doesn't mean you're going to end at a program that you desire or that is super competitive. And I don't know, there's this, I guess I don't come from schools that consider themselves like Ivy Leagues and competitive programs. I think I come from programs that know that they educate future physicians to the best of their ability and that they are prepared to go out into the workforce to do what they're going to do. And I think the more that we can emphasize that, I think the better. But
yeah, maybe it's a trick list where it's like we gather some information. It's like, what's your number one choice? And then here's your list. Look, your school's number one. Amazing.
Yeah.
No, it's a good point. That's like, is any kind of list more harmful than good?
Yeah, you know, U.S. News and World Report does not rank the dental schools. Did you know that?
I did not.
The reason for that is my understanding is the dental schools refuse to play. They won't play. So they don't get ranked.
Well, a lot of several, I don't know about a lot, but several of the medical schools now don't play with U.S. News and World Reports. And so I'm not sure how they're adjusting their methodology for that.
But here's the irony behind that, because I know, because I have a history of doing this. And it's interesting in just the way, right? So I don't want to name drop because I don't want to get in trouble.
Let's
I
call
will
them
say,
Sally.
well, like at one institution, the med school didn't participate, but the undergrad institution participated.
Yep.
So then when the undergrad institution participates, right, it creates this perception that everything that falls under the name then falls under this ranking.
Right.
At another institution, the school didn't participate because they pulled out, but the hospital then is on the world's best news ranking.
Yeah.
And then if there's the perception that because the hospital system is ranked so highly, that then everything that encompasses. So like even when you do it in these isolated moments, it's almost like we're going to do it because we don't believe in it, but we'll let other stuff speak for itself, right? And again, this perception of taking just the name in itself and say, this is where I'm at, or this is where the school places because of this. So it's all weird. If you're going to completely not participate, then don't participate in its entirety.
Right.
I would say.
Okay. All right. This comes up every once in a while about expiration dates for courses. I last took post-bac courses and undergrad courses 5 to 10 years ago, and I'm wondering if I need to take new upper-level science courses, and if so, how many? I've been told I need to show updated marks. This just depends on the school. Some schools have expiration dates for prereqs. Some schools don't. But I think, Scott, a lot of schools are still going to want to show like you're still a good student and you like being a student. So potentially taking courses.
Yeah. That's the thing. I think if you're that far away from school, then there's going to be a concern or some level of concern that it's going to take you longer to get ramped up back into school mode. And that will be a disadvantage for you in the process. So I would recommend taking some courses, not necessarily retaking courses or anything, but getting back into school mode, showing that you can still do the work. Yeah.
Yep. Will there be more application renovation or mission accepted? Yes, we're working on rebooting application renovation after a hiatus. Marvin, almost all of my schools on my list who have pulled their info from US News still have their hospitals listed on US News. Yep, as Carlos was just saying. Yeah, and again, it's all people making these decisions are typically the executives that think it is a reflection of their performance as an executive to have their hospital ranked in US News and World Reports when just doesn't.
And it's marketing because then you get these splashy things, right? Where name, number, whatever, and this, and name that. And I fall for it too, right? Like even hospitals within my area using them as they're
right.
I saw this, right? I saw this, therefore I'm going to go there and get my care because of that. So do a little deeper dive.
Yep.
So.
Kit, I'm a non-trad pre-med with a PhD working as a research scientist, volunteering in the ER, doing physician shadowing. I have to keep my job to pay bills. Is it detrimental to not have paid clinical? Absolutely not. Not at all. For reference, the ED has been eye-opening, and I'm getting tons of patient contact and learning a lot. Just don't know if paid work is seen as superior. No.
Nope.
'Tis not. Keep rocking. All right, let's see. I think we got to all of the questions. Oh, here's one. Maya again. I'm a multiple-time reapplicant. Maya, come work with our team so we can help you get into med school. Multiple-time reapplicant. All of my clinical experience with doctors are from 2 to 10 years ago. I'm wondering if I can do other kinds of clinical volunteering, such as first aid responder. I'm not sure what the the differentiation here is clinical experience with doctors. I think there's often a misconception that it's not clinical unless you're being observed by a physician, and that's not true.
Right.
So I would want to know what are you doing for work, for clinical experience, all that kind of stuff. It sounds like you're not doing anything as of right now. And the question would be why. And I don't know what a first aid responder is. So
Yeah, I don't know. I wondered about that too. I could be one of those. I have a box of
Band-Aids! I got them coming. I got the Neosporin. Then the dermatology.
Right.
No Neosporin. Man, I don't know if you saw, there's a comedian I follow online. Someone had a heart attack at his show recently.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
crazy.
Oh
And he's got it
wow.
all on video, and like apparently there were some people, I'm assuming potentially nurses, we don't really know, but lots of people are like, oh, those are nurses jumping in. Just like CPR started, I'll be your second, like just textbook CPR.
Wow.
And he got to a hospital and is survived at this point, which
Wow.
I think the data, they were talking about it, the data for an out of hospital cardiac arrest, it's only like 9% or so live.
Wow.
So it's pretty awesome. The comedian went to go visit him in the hospital the next day. So
Where was this?
it was in Spokane, I think.
Oh, okay.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting.
A friend of mine, was told by a doctor mentor to reach out to the admissions director of a school they're interested in to go over their app before applying. Is that a bad idea? I thought that was discouraged. Carlos, it's interesting. Like your former director of admissions, Scott, your former director of admissions. We know lots of directors of admissions, former directors of admissions. I think I mumbled all of that. I know some directors that are like, I'm an open book. I have students email me all the time. And other people are like, leave me alone. I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
Do you think it's just going to be case by case? And how do you think students should handle this?
I think it's based on program. I know we didn't, because then you get into the equity piece, right? Like I can only fit feedback on your application for 30 days because then we need to get ready for the next season, and whoever gets in those 30 days gets in, and then everybody starts to email of like, well, I didn't have an opportunity, you still have time. And I think we just didn't have the resources to provide feedback. I think it's also it's to your point, right? Some people feel comfortable providing the feedback and telling somebody like, look, your application was horrible. And so it just varies. We did it because we didn't have the time. It was a time commitment. So
yeah. Becoming Dr. Torres on Instagram says, I know at my med school they do that. I'd recommend it, but ask before to make sure they do it. Yeah, don't just like email them your application. Be like, hey, can you give me some feedback? Just like do a prior email and be like, hey, I was told maybe you would look at an application or talk to me before I apply. Oh, man. Jordan, if my cumulative GPA is 3.45, science GPA 3.22, but 60 credits upward trend 3.8, woo woo, would a postbac be needed if DO schools are the goal? Scott, I love the question. I hate the last part of the question, basically saying, well, DOs are lesser than or easier or whatever.
Right.
60 credits, 3.8 GPA. The one thing that isn't said here is, are those 60 credits mostly science courses? That would be one potential question. That's pretty solid.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. I do wonder about the science issue, because with a science GPA as low as 3.22, you'd have to have you would have to have very few. I don't know. That 3.22 to 3.8, that seems like a huge jump to me. So there's a massive number of credits to mathematically do that. So
they're saying mostly science, upper division bio.
Okay, then that makes sense. If there's a bunch of upper division, then it could offset it. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Post back or apply?
I'd say go for it.
Yeah.
I don't think a post back would be necessary.
I would. To me, like those 60 credits are the post back.
That's right.
And so you crushed it. Apply to MD, DO schools. Apply
Yeah.
to the schools you want to go to. Congrats.
Yeah.
Great job.
I miss Clippy.
Clippy.
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry. I imagine if Clippy was around today with like all of the AI stuff that we have, like Clippy would actually be useful. Clippy was
Should come back.
useless.
It would turn.
You're so mean.
All right, friends, another Premed office hours in the books. We're here almost every single Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern to answer all of your amazing questions. If you have questions you want to ask directly, to have a 30-minute or 50-minute call with one of these amazing gentlemen or any of our other awesome pre-med experts, medicalschoolhq.net. You can use the promo code PMOH. That's Premed office hours, PMOH, to save a little bit of money as well. We do mock interviews, essay editing, full cycle admissions. If you haven't gotten in, we can look at your application, guide you on next steps. We can take a look at your application before you submit your application, all that kind of stuff. Have a great week. Scott, Carlos, thanks for hanging out.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.